Well, hello, everybody. We're back. It's F1 Chase for the title. I'm your host, JB, alongside my compadres. I call him Dr. Bill. He calls himself Billy, whatever. Billy, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Steve, what's going on?
Not much. Hello.
It's great to be back, people. Thank you very much for all your support, and we're happy to be talking to you about Formula One. So thank you very much. And we hope that you enjoy the show. And, oh, no, please. Oh, please, with the applause, please. Oh, please. And then we're happy to have us back. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Overwhelmed by your enthusiasm. So, gentlemen, we're, I think, now 8 races into the season. And we had a race in France and Marseille, which was very interesting, very competitive. And then we had a doubleheader, so to speak, because we just had the Styrian Grand Prix in beautiful Austria. And we're going to be there again this week. So we've had 3 races in a row. So what do we think so far about what's unveiled in this 2021 season that was supposed to be kind of almost like a limbo year because of all the changes pending in 2022, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening, right, Dr. Bill?
Yeah, it seemed like it was just going to be a year that just kind of marking time before the changes are implemented for next year. But if anything, it's been much more. It's been probably one of the most exciting seasons in recent years, as Mercedes is not constantly, 1-2 at the front every week. So they're being tested a bit, which is nice.
And it seems like you're right. It seems like Red Bull has their act together, right, Steve? They seem to be very much on it right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of focus in the off year to make some modifications so that Red Bull would be very competitive with Mercedes, and what they've shown, at least over the last 4 races, is that they've definitely got something on Mercedes. They've got power and they've got handling, and it's showing in the results of Max Verstappen.
Yeah, because he's been very quick and surprisingly quick. That the Mercedes seems to be it's the car with more horsepower, but it seems like the top end speed that Red Bull's got Mercedes licked there, and then it seems cornering. Mercedes is still a little bit better in the corner, so it seems like that seems to be the balance of power we're watching so far.
Yeah, and I think the straightaways definitely are for Red Bull for sure, and they're definitely that's where they're showing their speed and their ability to dominate Mercedes. So these tracks where I think Mercedes once ruled, we're now seeing Red Bull taking a really strong lead.
And it was interesting with the Styrian course, who's in a beautiful spot in Austria, and it's a track they haven't raced on all that much, and it's a short track because it was just under, I think, 2.65 miles. So it's a quick lap, just a little over a minute when they're qualifying. And they thought that as a result of that, they had an interesting thing on a preview show that I was watching that I hadn't seen them talk about before on Sky One via ESPN. They talked about the battle forecast, and they basically come out with the opportunity to overtake and how long it will take to overtake from the start to the finish. And it was interesting because they were like, should they take 5 or 6 laps from here, striking distance kind of thing. And it just shows you how much math is involved with these calculations and how well these guys have this narrowed down to the nanosecond as to when something should or shouldn't happen, Dr. Bill.
Yeah, and unfortunately that played into the one rare spot of good luck that Bottas has, in that Perez just ran out of time. He would have gotten. He probably would have passed him if there were maybe 2 more laps left in this race, but he just ran out of track.
And again, we saw that tire strategy is such a critical part of this sport, and when you pit, when you change, because the Red Bull had done the 2-stop strategy, and Mercedes was trying to do the 1-stop strategy. In the end, right in the last lap, I mean, to show you again how close this is, folks, in the constructors and the point totals, they basically brought Hamilton in on the last lap to change tires so he could get the fastest lap and get that away from Perez, who I think had it, and basically take a point away from Red Bull on the last lap. I mean, that's how close they think this thing's going to be, which you haven't seen that before from Mercedes.
Yeah.
But I thought the other thing that was impressive too, as they were going through the field, how quick the Mercedes was relative to the rest of the cars. That he kept lapping the field. I think he got to the point where he had lapped everybody except I think up to I think the fourth. Was Perez finished fourth, I think?
Yeah.
Perez was fourth, yeah.
And I think that was the only only car he didn't pass. Everybody else was basically a lap down from him. I mean, unbelievable, right?
Yeah. It was very like Hamiltonian, Max's race. It just seemed like he was out in another dimension. Nobody was around.
Yeah, a lot of clean air for him. Obviously there was a fair amount of traffic that they had to kind of weave through in that short course. But the Red Bull, both Red Bull cars, both Mercedes cars were just completely and totally dominant on this course. But another surprise contender was McLaren and Lando Norris, and putting forth a real solid fifth place finish and a very solid start. But I think what we're seeing is just beyond the Mercedes and Red Bull fight for constructors' points is the fight between McLaren and Ferrari. And you saw that in some of the strategies, even in Lando Norris in letting Perez kind of just go right by him and not really putting up that fight. I think at that point they realized that, it was either drive aggressive for a whole race trying to get a fourth place position, or be competitive and beat Ferrari, which fortunately for Lando, he did come in ahead of Carlos and Charles Leclerc, but he didn't get a lot of help from Ricciardo. So,
well, I thought the other thing lower down the field, which is interesting, is the we talked about Vettel's sort of being reinvigorated, but the guy who seems to really be coming on, relatively speaking, from my point of view, is Alonso. He looked like last year. I think he looked like sort of a guy that basically maybe was away from the game too long. And he looks like he's back in action. And matter of fact, it was funny because I guess he got pissed because he was fighting for position. And when Verstappen came up from behind him, and he knew that he had to move out of the way, but he was trying to pick his spot because he was also trying to make a move. And I guess what happened was ultimately he ended up moving aside. Verstappen passed him, and Sainz went past him too for seventh. And he was like pissed because he was like, if I didn't move over for Verstappen, Sainz wouldn't have the opportunity to get by me. And so he ended up finishing 10th, Alonso. But I think if his competitive spirit is going to keep that car even more competitive than it otherwise would, from based on what I can see. It seems like he's enjoying it again.
Yeah.
Definitely the last few races.
Yeah. And to me, it makes you think that because you see the difference between Norris and Ricciardo, it just seems like does it take you a little while to figure out how to adequately drive the car, and maybe it's taken this long for Alonso to get to that point where he feels comfortable driving the car, because he finished 9th, Ocon finished 14th, so that's a pretty big difference in the same car.
And they gave Ocon a nice big contract extension too recently. So,
did they?
Yeah, they did. So he's going to be there for a couple more years at least. So yeah, I think that and Lando we talked about Lando had a great race, and even Stroll was moving up towards the end.
Yeah.
And it was a relatively clean race. There wasn't any major disasters. There was no red flags. There might have been a yellow. I think one or two, perhaps. I'm trying to remember, but they weren't significant, fortunately.
Yeah, they were quick.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'd probably call is maybe just a little bit of sloppy racing, especially by Charles Leclerc. He had a couple of incidents, obviously early on, coming in the first corner, where he tangled a bit with Gasly, which is unfortunate because I think if you reflect on Pierre Gasly and what he's been able to accomplish, at least from a starting standpoint in qualifying, he's done a phenomenal job of putting that car, at I think it was 6th that he came in this week. But to go out so quickly due to an unfortunate pop in the tire due to Charles Leclerc just being kind of overly aggressive. He just throughout the whole race, he was just very aggressive and a bit sloppy with it. Granted, he had a tremendous amount of overtakes. I think that ended up hurting him in the long run because he probably could have performed a lot better than seventh had he not messed up.
Well, he did well enough that he was voted driver of the day by the fans. So Charles, so and he's right there with Sainz. So I mean, I think the Ferrari team is sort of, they're just maybe a step or two below where the big boys are. I think they're knocking on the door, but they're not quite there. So I think for them, I think they view if they get the third spot on a podium, or occasionally if Charles could grab a second or something depending on the track. But I don't think they're quite there yet. But man, are they much farther ahead than we were looking for the last 2 seasons when Vettel was miserable as hell and they were just awful.
Yeah.
I mean, we expected them to be down with Williams this year.
And obviously, Dr. Bill, your McLaren squad is, they're a player. Let's face it, they're a player now.
Yeah.
In a long time, they're a player.
Yeah, it's Red Bull, Mercedes, or Mercedes, Red Bull, and then I think McLaren is the next name there. Even though it would be better, I mean, if they could get the two guys kind of on the same page, and I think that definitely helps having somebody who's similar to where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've talked about that, and I think it's showing up now. Each week, there's a different version of some kind of team play that we haven't seen in Formula One in quite a while, because Mercedes as a team is great, but as a team between drivers, it's terrible. Because I don't think there's any particular love lost between Hamilton and Bottas. I don't think they hate each other per se. I don't think Hamilton has a ton of respect for Bottas, and I think Bottas feels like if he had gotten some of the goodies that Hamilton has been getting from over the years, maybe Bottas feels like he'd be Nico Rosberg, that he could have clipped Lewis in one of these seasons and picked up his own title, right?
Yeah, yep. And I think that it's happened repeatedly. I don't think it's ever really overt, but it just seems to be repeatedly occur that Bottas just gets the leftovers.
Well, think about what happened this week with Bottas, right? He was basically second qualifying position, and then whether he did it on his own or whether he was instructed to, when he came out of the pits, they told him to sort of test his stop, or what I'm not exactly sure what his acceleration.
Start in second gear.
And he's to hopefully literally accelerate out of the thing, but not exceed limits, but get up to the limit quicker. And he did, and he spun the freaking car. And the McLaren guys had to help push it back. So what's that good old Bottas? A three spot penalty on the starting grid, right? So it seems like you're right. Whenever something positive happens, it almost seems like the gods of racing go, "Oh, that's Bottas. Oh no, we got to do something about that. What are we gonna do? Let's have him test the second gear thing, and then he's gonna screw up, and then we're gonna knock him down 3 pegs." So it's remarkable. It seems like each week he's a different version of Grosjean, because Grosjean did stuff and he would get penalties and occasionally take other guys out. Bottas inevitably hurts himself by himself on his own.
He takes himself out.
Yeah.
So and I think that I think it's more than the handwriting's on the wall. I think it's just clear that a divorce is coming between the Bottas and Mercedes, because you kind of just tell. It's almost like they're tolerating each other and they're living in the same house, but they really can't stand each other anymore. And now whether Bottas is going to be a hot commodity in the free agent market.
Well, just the attitude. I mean, you reflect on, you talk about team and how they respond. So who's nibbling at Bottas's heels? It's Russell.
Yep.
Right.
Russell, again, I mean, I think he was up to 7th place, 8th, 7th place. He was definitely in points position, driving strong. And then he got multiple failures in that car. And ultimately, I want to say maybe around the 17th lap, he had to retire. But, when they're apologizing, he's saying, "Hey, don't worry about it. We're in this together. We'll get him next week." I mean, he's saying all the right things. Yet Bottas is got to go in the complete opposite, and he's more in self-preservation mode and kind of pulling a little bit of, not to the extreme, but pulling a little bit of what Vettel did with Ferrari last year.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's going to get him far, but Russell right now is saying all the right things to potentially take that spot.
Right. But I thought I heard a quote from Lewis this week saying that he values Bottas as a teammate and he's a great teammate and all that kind of stuff. I don't know where. I don't know if that was a current quote or if that was an old quote.
He did say that.
Yeah.
No, he did say that, and again, that's the right thing to say in the spirit of team.
Right.
But and even at the end of the race, when they pulled in at second and third, as Hamilton was inspecting his car, saying, "What is wrong with this car?" Bottas came over and they did their little, man hug, but let's face it, they are strangers a bit with this team camaraderie. And when you look at Red Bull and Verstappen, and Sainz, I'm sorry, not Sainz, Perez, they are a team. I mean, they're laughing together. They're trying to make this happen and work, and it shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, even in the Haas team seems to be, even though they're well underperformed, undergunned, they seem like they've got their act together. That Gunther guy he's funny when they interview him during the course of the race, and he seems like a sharp guy. And it just seems like if they had a bigger budget, and maybe they're the team to watch from a step up point of view, because if everybody's coming down in dough a little bit, maybe they're going to be the Oakland A's. Maybe they're going to come up because they're doing a little bit more with less. And I think it also helped McLaren clearly. And, Ferrari obviously I think is ready to go. So it should be interesting and as we sort of go forward. So right now we got Max on top, right, of the standings, but it's closing up a little bit, hasn't it? I didn't check. I think it was 158 or something to one.
Let's see. I got
156 to 138.
156, 138. Verstappen over Hamilton.
Yeah. And Perez is at 96. So, the difference between third and second is pretty significant.
Right.
And then when you look at Sergio Perez in third, all the way down to sixth place, Charles Leclerc at 58. It's within about 30 points. Lando Norris at 86, so he's 10 points behind Perez. So he's still well in the hunt. This time last year, Lando Norris had fallen back quite a bit. So he's very much in the hunt. And then followed by at fifth place with Valtteri Bottas at 74. So not where he wants to be, but where he deserves to be at this point, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's as we lay out the field, we keep talking about the current and next generation, and sort of it's bumping up together. When we talk about the Vettels, Alonsos, and Hamiltons, they're on the one end of the career spectrum, and then you got Max, which is kind of here and now, and then you got these younger guys who are like, not that far behind Max in terms of skill and stuff. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it continues, and it'll also be kind of fun because this doesn't happen very often. We're a week apart in races, and we're going to be right back in the same place. So you wonder, is there a complete carryover? Did they just do the same thing they just did before, or is it going to change because of? Now I don't know is the race distance going to be exactly the same. Are they going to do the same number of laps, or did they change it up for the second version of? Because I think the Styrian Grand Prix this week was 65 laps. So, 71. Was it 71? 71 laps.
71.
71, yeah.
So is that what they're doing again this week?
I believe they are. I don't know that they're changing it up, but
no, that's interesting.
I'm just eyeballing the track back and forth between this past week and this upcoming week, and they look identical. There may be differences. Like I said, I'm just eyeballing it, but they look pretty similar.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting is 2 weeks ago when we were at the Marseille track, and they had all those, the big thing is track limits, right? I mean, race control keeps trying to enforce these guys on track limits so they can't go outside and get an advantage or whatever. And with the Marseille track, they had like like a couple blue lines or whatever. And then if you went over the blue lines, they have like almost like these yellow mini speed bumps. And the guys are hitting those things and they're doing undercarriage damage to the car. And it's like, what moron said, "Oh, this is a good idea. We'll give them these guys Formula One cars are going 175 miles an hour. And around these corners, they're still probably doing 80, 90 miles an hour, depending on what it is. And if they go off a little bit, they can hit speed bumps. So that'll wake them up and make them realize that they're off the track." What, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I don't get that at all. Like, can't you come up with a better system? Because you're only going to do damage to these cars. I don't know. If I'm a manufacturer, I'm a team, I'm pretty pissed. It's like, come on, guys, come up with something else, right? I mean, you go over the line like we do at other tracks. If race control sees it, you ding us, you take away a qualifying lap, and we have to start again or whatever. But why should we be hitting something that's going to hurt the car?
Yeah. I mean, you have enough challenge to keep the car together for the 70 or however many laps there are. You don't need an extra challenge in there, which is what I think what Max was having.
Right. And as they were saying, too, I think Red Bull, Max had a problem, hit his thing, and they had to do some repairs in free practice 2 or 3. And they're like, okay, well, this is extra money, so this doesn't count against our cap, right? Because, basically, it's not our fault that the race limits here mean that we hit a speed bump and it causes damage to the car, because they're sitting there going, back in the day, they're pissed off, but it's like money's money. But now it's like, wait a minute, this counts against our cap. Why should we have to pay for damage that you guys basically, in effect, caused because, we slipped off the track a little bit, but we didn't fly off the track.
Right.
I don't know. It just seems like that should be a little bit smarter. I don't know. But all right, so we've got Styrian Grand Prix coming up, and then obviously we're going to have a little bit of a break, and then we'll get back to the normal routine and beyond probably every other week, I guess, for up to 23 races so far, unless something else gets canceled. So, prognostication, a little bit of Nostradamus. What do you guys expect to see for, say, the next 8 races? We'll take it in sort of almost thirds because it's almost 24 races. So we're at 8. We're at 8 now, and going through this next stretch. So, what do you expect to see, Dr. Bill?
I'm expecting, especially this coming week, obviously, but I'm expecting continued Red Bull dominance. I don't see how that's going to change.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think it is Mercedes going to see what they can do to increase or enhance their current package to see if they can compete with Red Bull. It's still going to be, we're going to Great Britain in July for some courses there. I think it's going to be a close call between Mercedes and Red Bull, because I don't think Mercedes wants to be second best. I think you're also going to see other teams try to continue pushing up. Both Stroll and Vettel they have seemed to have turned around from the start of the season, and I think we're going to continue to see them climb up the charts and try to be more aggressive, because I do believe those cars were making a significant change to make them more competitive moving forward. I can't recall what that change was. I'll have to find out, but I know that they are making a change to the Aston Martin car.
They have a change coming up, or they've already done it?
I think they either just implemented it or are going to implement it.
Because I think they said even like, it's interesting you say that, Steve, because they said even like this week with Mercedes that Hamilton got some chassis adjustment set up, and they took what he was driving and they gave it to Bottas. So Hamilton got the brand new one, and then Bottas got Lewis's. I don't know if it's quite like a hand-me-down, but it made it sound like, then Bottas is going to drive the package that Hamilton had been driving, and Hamilton got a new sort of setup. So, yeah, I'm not sure how extensive these things can be based on the current rules, but it does seem that these other teams are finding something, whether it's more power or more efficiency, what have you, because they seem to be getting better. And maybe just closing the marginal distance a little bit. So, and we've said before, it's like I still think that where we are in this case of, if you get a Max or Hamilton or somebody out, then all of a sudden it makes it a lot more interesting because at least one spot on the podium opens up.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, which one in the next group is it going to be? Leclerc this week? Is it going to be,
Ferrari?
Right, Ferrari? Is it going to be Norris? Is it going to be is Vettel or somebody going to be able to step up? Is Danny Ricciardo going to get off his rear end because he's getting his ass whipped by his teammate? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yes, but this week it was Carr. I mean, he was having a problem with the. I think it was with the power block because he was losing power.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting. He's an up tempo. He's an up sort of beat guy, but he's going to get frustrated too after a while because he's going to be like, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm as talented as anybody out here, and I should be moving up. I should certainly be in the points every week." I think he thinks that. So but it's been enjoyable, and I think that it's going to continue. I think it's going to be an interesting season. It'll be, I guess it'll just come down to good old-fashioned luck and reliability, right? I mean, because if these guys stay on their feet, so to speak, between Red Bull and Mercedes, it seems like which way they finish is the question. But they're 1-2, right? I mean, and there's nobody coming up behind these guys, barring some kind of disaster. It's the battle between these two big boys at this point, right?
Yeah, it seems to be, and it's always just wonder who's going to be the third person on the podium, who's going to be the third team on the podium.
Right. Yeah, and with a disaster or a tire puncture or something like that, it does open up the availability to have like a Norris or somebody on the podium. I think, which anytime we see an opportunity like that, it always brings a lot of enthusiasm and excitement to the podium. So,
yep.
Yeah, and I saw on another related note, but I saw recently that they're in negotiations. Bernie Ecclestone is to cooperate with a huge, extensive documentary about his life and his involvement with, basically, in a sense, founding the modern Formula One. And it should be very interesting because apparently he said that, he's made available all sorts of stuff. And so the guy who's producing and directing it is the guy who did the Senna documentary. So I think it's going to be like a multi-part, almost like F1 Survive. It's going to be a multi-part series of stuff on Ecclestone. And I'm sure it'll be lots of good racing footage and interviews with drivers and lots of different people and stuff. And, Ecclestone's he's a character, a very interesting guy, controversial in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't like him. Sharp elbows, politically savvy, different things in his life that maybe, weren't so attractive. But you got to give him credit for this behemoth that is Formula One. I mean, as we talked about before, Liberty Media and these packages and Sky Sports. And I mean, it's the most valuable sports league in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there with the Premier League in soccer. I mean, in terms of spectators, I think it rivals every year, European soccer for how many people either watch it in person and watch it on TV, because it's like in I don't know how many countries, right? So it should be interesting to see what him sort of being interviewed and talked about what's going on over the years and whatever. So that should be something that's coming forward. I think probably a year or so before we see it, I guess. But and of course, I'm sure they're filming another season of. I think it was renewed. Drive for
Oh yeah, no, it definitely has.
They've been having a new season.
They've been commenting on some of the race results, and they happen to be in sync with some of their focuses on the drivers. So it's
really?
But yeah, but that series has definitely played a significant role in the uptick of the interest in
viewership,
especially in North America.
Just one thing before we go, though. I got to talk about this because it drives me crazy. What is with the masks, particularly on the Sky Sports thing? They're like they're inside the studio, and the two guys are there, and they don't have masks on. Then they go outside, and they're standing apart from each other, and they don't have masks. The drivers they're wearing masks. The drivers aren't wearing masks for the most part. It's like, is it just country by country, or I don't get it. It just particularly when they're outside. I'm like, why are you people standing? Why are you wearing masks? Because I'm sure they've all had the vaccinations because they can't get in and out of these countries without it, right, Dr. Bill?
Yeah, it's probably country specific.
Yep.
And setting. What's the setting and what's the vaccine status of the other people if you're indoors especially. But I think it's specific to each individual country.
Because then some of these places, though, it looks like the spectators are not wearing masks, but then you got people down. I don't know. It seems inconsistent to me. Even within the broadcast group, which is just, I don't know. Sometimes I'm sitting there going, well, be consistent one way or another. Either everybody's got them or nobody has them, and because at one point they're standing right next to the guy, and next part they're in the same race. So like standing six, the guy's holding the microphone like this, but they're not wearing masks. I'm like, so I don't know, because when they're interviewing George Russell before the race, and the guy Johnny Herbert, who's not a big guy, he's got like this boom mic, and he's trying to hold it with one arm. I'm thinking, I'm getting tired just watching him, because Russell's tall. Russell,
he is very tall.
6 feet, right? He looks like he's 6'1" or something, which is amazing in and of itself. The fact that he can fit himself somewhat into those cars, because as you know, this is not a tall man's sport. So he must really have to be flexible to cram his knees in that friggin' car. So
yeah.
But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But so listen, I think it's exciting. We've had exciting 8 races so far. We got another, obviously, 15 coming up, and I think we got some good stretches here. So I think it's going to be fun to see back and forth week to week or every other week, depending on what the spacing is between the races. And like we said, see if somebody can come up and grab that third spot. Each week, somebody else comes up and says, okay, we'll give it a shot. And then reliability is going to be a big factor as we go forward. And if these upgrades are coming through, I don't know. Has Ferrari shot its pretty much its load, so to speak, for all it's going to do, or does it have more in its pocket? Because they still got their Grand Prix coming up and Monza and such, and so I think they're going to want to. I don't know. I think Monza's still coming up, right? We haven't had that yet, have we?
Nope.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Right?
Nope.
So we got some, and Silverstone is obviously a big track for everybody. So I don't know. It should be exciting.
Yeah, and we still have a track for October 1 through 3 that hasn't been decided yet, according to the F1 website. So.
Okay. I have to check that because I know they announced Turkey
for Singapore. Is it Singapore? Is that right?
They replaced Turkey with Singapore, I believe.
Okay.
But then they were looking for potentially a North American one for that.
Well, I think they were going to shuffle some things and open up a spot. But I don't know if that actually now that they've got Turkey, I don't know if that opens up a spot.
So they're going to put Turkey in that to be decided spot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they haven't put it in there yet, but it was announced this week that the TBC is going to be Turkey.
Yeah, good.
Oh, okay. It's a little disappointing. I thought maybe we grab it and get a second race here, which as we talked about would be really kind of cool. But
it would be great, but they do have a very passionate fan base in Turkey, so I'm not surprised by that move at all. And Turkey, they took Turkey off this year, so.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. So
what's the status of COVID in Turkey? Are they behind the 8 ball too, or are they doing relatively well?
Offhand, I don't know, but I gotta imagine they're probably doing better than some of the South America locations.
Yeah, well, I suppose they wouldn't. Formula One wouldn't take it if they said, "Hey, look, we're not gonna have nobody in the stands."
Mexico and Brazil.
Yeah.
Now Mexico City still on.
Yep.
Okay.
End of October, followed by Brazil, and I think Brazil is going to be one that we watch closely.
The one that's perplexing to me is Canada. What the hell's going on up there? They can't get back together. They got compared to the United States, they got 5 people, and the border's closed, and they can't get people vaccinated. What the hell?
Yeah, they just. I don't think they've been able to buy vaccines for some reason. I don't know. It's a mess.
I don't get it. It's unbelievable. I mean, Montreal is it's a world-class city, for crying out loud, and I gotta imagine they want these. I mean, look at what they had the Canadians going there for a while in hockey and stuff, and people. It's just I don't get it. But anyway,
They
that's
took a very different approach. I mean, look at Australia.
I know.
They're not vaccinating.
They're probably going to be under wraps and closed to everybody for another year, they're saying.
Well, they've got the end of the year race, so we'll see.
Melbourne, is that where they're supposed to be?
Yeah, I think that follows after Brazil.
That's still scheduled?
As of right now, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because they were just talking about, I was watching Wimbledon, and they were talking about a couple of the tennis players that have Australian either roots or background, and they're like, they haven't been allowed to go home for like since the thing started because they didn't want to get basically quarantined and not be able to leave the country. So like they've been out, and obviously they're tennis players, so they're used to being traveling and stuff, but you never be able to go back to your home because the country's shut down. It's like, wow, that's
It's tough.
Particularly with Australia, it's a pretty capitalistic society and pretty good economy and the whole bit. You would think that. I know it's a massive territory and everything, but they've got some huge cities, so it's like, I don't know, I don't get it. I mean, I understand that obviously they're not getting the distribution that they should be getting, but it's crazy that some of these places are in such dire straits. So hopefully they'll get their act together and But in the meantime, Formula One rolls on. We keep going where the people are willing to see us and are in a position to watch, and we get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And we'll continue to cover it for you and see what goes on. So, and it's very hot and humid temperatures that we're running here. Hopefully it's going to cool off, but if it doesn't, we're not going to complain because we complain about the winter too much, right, guys?
True.
Very true.
And I should point out that our good friend Chase was feeling a little under the weather. Otherwise, he would be on the show. It's not like he hasn't negotiated his own contract for his own show yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. None of us will be surprised when we find out that our time is being diminished. So it's the F1 Chase show. But right now he's just under the weather, and he'll be back on with us next time we appear. So wish him well, and belated again, happy birthday to our friend Dr. Bill. Dr. Bill,
Thank you.
Congratulations on a birthday. Congratulations. You look great. You look wonderful.
Thank you.
I mean, 75 years old, folks. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, it's just unbelievable, right? 75.
Yeah. That's the smart water.
What are you, Ronaldo?
Yeah, Coke.
Did you see what he did? Cristiano Ronaldo, the hero. He pushed the Coke bottles aside, stopped up $4 billion in market cap. That's it. That's what you call an influencer, folks. I like war.
That is a true influencer.
Yeah. Well, pretty much we have that influence on this show. So we'll be doing product placement. But right now, that was not a paid product placement, right, Dr. Bill? That was spontaneous. There's one of your fans right now. In the background, I can hear him.
In the background. He can't control himself.
No, he's very excited about your birthday.
He was.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more excitement. And we'll be back. And F1 Chase for the title signing off. See ya.